Yeah, which becomes everything. Yeah, and yet for certain people it's this or that or this or that, right? For whatever karmic reason or whatever the reason might be, whether known or unknown or. But if it starts to move, traffic starts to move, everybody happy, right?
So it's just, isn't that a form of psycho-emotion then?
Well, the psycho-emotion is a perception of things and a judgment, which tends to. Well, it's the perception that things are real, as opposed to you're real, or your ability to move things are real.
So true joy just kind of like, oh, Christmas morning. Kind of thing. Every moment.
It could be, I think. Or every moment, yeah, could seem like something or another.
But it's also a biochemical state, right?
Again, if you want to digress, yes. Yeah, it's an electrochemical state. Yeah, depending on what you call chemical and what you call electrical. But of course, we have a definition of what electrical is, right? And chemical, for that matter. So on certain levels, certain things are quite well defined until it moves out of the definition. If you move closer in or further away, it becomes not what it's purported to be. But that's where you live.
The state of, I guess you could say, not caring or detachment. Is that an aspect of true joy?
Carefreeness, maybe, depending on what you mean by it.
Inner peace, I guess.
Inner peace. Depending on which way you go, I think you can go forward or reverse. You can go reverse and be in some kind of vegetative state. Yeah, level of unconsciousness.
It's possible.
Or you can be, I mean, you see a lot of those people that might be OD'd on meditation. That could be considered care.
Huh.
Yeah.
So where do you draw the line then?
I think it's, if you look at them and they look OD'd, then they're OD'd, I think. But again, that's just my own judgment, just my own perception. Ultimately, nobody suffers, right? It's just a perception of it. If you want to just state what's supposed to be true, if you just go around saying that. Yeah, nobody fails and nobody dies, right? I mean, you could say that. And that could be ultimate truth. And yet, what you're experiencing seems very real, whether it's the illusion of suffering appears to be very real. But if you work with that angle, then gradually it can loosen, or you have more mastery of your earth life. Or you meet earth life with fullness, and you cannot mistaken what's good and what's bad, right? Although we're not going to judge it for the sake of the formula. So you're going to be the authority. You're not going to assign somebody else to say how you're feeling. Your own experience should be self-evident within your own self. But then, of course, it's a little bit more different than that, right? It gets old, right? After a while, certain cause and effect kind of thing, or certain conditional joy, I guess. So true joy would be, per the definition, or some kind of definition, it's more based on your own sense of being, whatever that means, yeah, or experiencing your, and yet it's also expressed that if you have an awareness of your true self-worth, then you're in infinite money dynamics, or anything like that, yeah. So, who's to say, right? Because you're looking at it in the dimension of time. Right? So the time in and of itself becomes the trap. Or that prevents you from going into true joy. So you become present, and there it is. It would be. But you're going to say, how can I feel that? Yeah? You're going to digress and say, well, how can I be happy if I don't have anything that you as an ego want? So you're going to immediately go back to ego, because if you go real present, you start to at least touch on true joy, or you have enough sparks or flashes of it.
So then it really is, let's see, it's one or the other. You can't really have both. You can't be in time and...
No, you do. You are in time. So it's therefore it's a little tricky, because you're not in denial of time. Then you'll be a retard, right? And yet you can actually understand the concept of time but not be in it. Yeah, which is a state of function. It's not a state of mind. So whether we can instrumentally measure that state, I think you should be able to, if the instrumentation is sophisticated enough, the illusion is able to measure another illusion more precisely. And yet, if you're using cybernetics or at least some kind of a feedback, then you still need to use the illusion within the illusion, right? To measure your level of perception, because it's still vibrational. So within the illusion, if you're vibrating the same as the collective illusion, then you cannot escape it. So relative to the collective illusion, you have to start to vibrate above the collective agreement. Because the agreement is, we'll all pretend that this is real. Unless one, and so...
Oh, so it will keep you in the...
Yeah, unless you decide to individually, your own subset as the part of the illusion to vibrate higher, to perceive the illusion. And then then you might be true joy. Wow, this is cool, right? So you're not dependent upon a shift, illusion or shift in the illusion to give you that sense of self-worth or value. So people still fishing for an intellectual answer, as you are, right? But doesn't mean it's bad, but it means that you ain't gonna get it that way, because once you intellectualize it, it's a little different, because you're going to thought. But per the avenue of thought, you can look for the movement that takes you into the flow within the context of your intellectualization, because it's electromagnetic. Thoughts are electromagnetic, but nobody knows what electricity is, and yet we can sort of see certain movement within the illusion and say that's electricity or something. And some say thoughts are electromagnetic. And sounds good. Sounds as good as it can be. And yet once it registers into the brain, the